and it's my absolute pleasure to introduce you to him. Doug. Hello, One Young World. Thank you very much. I want to make sure you're awake. Right, I'm Doug Richard, and I am here because I see something out there, and I'll tell you what I see. I see two types of people. I see a group of people who don't know they can change the world, and I see a group of people who are going to. My job today is to ensure that I see at the end of our talk one group of people, a group of people, all of whom appreciate that you can change the world. My job today is modest. All I have to do is persuade you, if you don't think you can change the world, that you can. But the mechanism for change, the way in which I want you to change the world, is through a type of revolution that we do not often call revolution. And so my job today is to reinvent the word revolution. Piece of cake. How do I do that? Well, let's start by asking what type of revolution we're talking about. What we're talking about is the case for entrepreneurship. It's why there are a group of people in the millions on whose back all prosperity lies. Let me make the case for you. Last year, a study was concluded that had gone on for a number of years in the United States that shattered a number of illusions. I'd like to help you shatter those illusions for yourself. What that study did is it looked at all job creation and innovation as it happens in the United States over a period of 20 years. And during the course of that 20 years, they realized, delving into the data more deeply than had been delved before, that it was not small business that created new jobs. It was not small business that created innovation. It was something slightly subtly different. It was young business. So what's the difference between a small business and a young business? Well, actually, a great deal. A young business is entrepreneurial. A young business is somebody who very recently decided one day to stand up and do something about the world. It could be a modest thing, it could be an ambitious thing, but it was something. And it had only recently happened. And what they found is, and it's a little shattering, because what they found is, despite the efforts of governments, despite the efforts of apprenticeship programs and development programs and aid and large corporations, all innovation and all new jobs, largely, come from young business. It comes from the hands and efforts and minds of entrepreneurs. And why is this important? Well, because there are only two things that create the change that we want. There are only two things that create non-incremental change. It's great to do things 10% better. It's great to do things 10% cheaper. The problem is 10% better and 10% cheaper doesn't change the world. We just had an entire session talking about energy poverty, and we sort of glistened along the top of some very deep issues that lie underneath it. We didn't necessarily come to grips with them. Some of your questions did. The answers may have not. But it's a challenge, isn't it? If I do not have enough energy to light my home, if I am sitting in the dark, what do I care about the sustainability of the energy if I do get it? I don't. And you understood that. You appreciated that there is a deep challenge in there. So how do we change that? Do we change it solely by making it 10% cheaper or 10% better, by gradual incremental change? No, we don't. We cannot improve our way to the future. I have a great deal of faith in the future. It hasn't happened yet. It's the only thing I can have faith in. The past I can't have faith in, it's happened. And the future changes solely if we make discontinuous change. Let me give you an example. We underappreciate what I would call the titans of communication. We underappreciate the building blocks that they laid over the last 10 years to permit some of the radical changes we've seen over the last 12 months. Who are the titans of communication? It's two guys out of Sweden who basically learned how their technology chops by stealing music. Nicholas Zennström and his partner who started Skype. Sorry, they liberated music from their point of view. Be that as it may, they started a thing called Kazaa, which shared music, not necessarily owned. And then they went on to create Skype. And Skype did what? Skype took the value of all the corporations in the world who did long-distance phone calls, which prior to Skype, say in the early 90s, the sum of their market caps would have been worth what? $100 billion, $150 billion? You know what their market cap's worth now? Nothing. Where did the $150 billion go? It's simple. It went into free phone calls. It went into the fact that you can sit anywhere in the world and talk to anyone in the world, and it costs nothing. We now have a smaller world. We have a more connected world. Titans of communication. Twitter, Facebook, titans of communication. You think when Mark Zuckerberg was an undergraduate at Harvard, desperately seeking dates and inclusion, that he realized he was going to change the whole world? I'm very admiring of Mark Zuckerberg. I'm very admiring of the fact that his desire for a date led to social change. Nevertheless, one way or another, he has created something that is deeply important to the fabric of society. Everyone here, by definition, because of your age, is on Facebook. I am only on Facebook so my children cannot be my friend. It's a sort of an act of humiliation, ritually. The fact of the matter is, Facebook is transforming. Facebook is important. It became important when 600 million plus people chose to be on Facebook. In a world of 6 billion, it's a very rare moment when a little less than 10% of the global population votes on anything in agreement. Thus, it's important, and of course, it's been transformative. Twitter, Facebook, Skype, and all of their like, they laid the groundwork. Those were bricks that put in place to reduce the size of the world, increase the connectivity of the world, and in so doing lay part of the fabric that led to the social revolutions and the economic revolutions that we are seeing across the Arab Crescent. Are they the sole things that cause the change? Of course not. One would be naive to think that technology creates change. Technology enables people who create change to create change. People change the world. But they're important, and they're important because they're innovators. And innovation reaches the world usually, almost inevitably, when somebody stands up and creates a new business doing it. They wrap a business around that innovation. I am less interested in the act of innovation than I am in the person who exploits the innovation. It is the doers and grafters, the people who make the change, that matter. The people who innovate matter too, but the people at the end of the last minute, the last mile, the person who does matters. A number of you here are entrepreneurs already. A number of you here think you could be an entrepreneur, and many of you don't appreciate that you should be an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur doesn't necessarily start a business. In 2011, an entrepreneur may very well start a social enterprise. And I love social enterprises. Why do I love social enterprises? Because they are not charities. I do not depend on the handouts of others. They're not NGOs. I do not depend on the favors of nations. What they are is somebody who stands up and in order to do good, does well. Now that's an interesting thing because the order of battle is they must do well in order to do good. A social enterprise is an enterprise. The adjective is social. It modifies the word enterprise. It's an entrepreneur who's chosen to take the surplus and send that surplus back into society. A social enterprise is a sustainable version of business, and it's a sustainable version of charity. That is a wonderful notion. Why does it matter here? Well, a few years ago, in New York, in the effort to combat the decline of bad neighborhoods, they created something called a zero-tolerance policy. At first glance, you might think that was a very harsh policy, and it was an unforgiving policy. The notion was any graffiti, any defacement, any vandalism would not be permitted. An unexpected good came out of it, and a lesson for society came out of it, and that was that it was the first piece of vandalism that gave social permission to the second. And thus, any vandalism at all created a tolerance for vandalism in an area. And thus, neighborhoods that start going bad accelerate and get bad, and those that never start don't. And therefore, there's a question then. What is the contrapositive of that? What's the opposite of that? And I'll tell you what the opposite of that is. If you come from an area where no one has been an entrepreneur, where 3 generations of families have lived off the state, where nobody's held a job, it's the first person to stand up and say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, who creates the social question and answers to the local community that, yes, we can. And it's a very unusual thing. To be the first is a very hard thing. Now, what I would like to do today is I would like, in 1 hour, to give you the kind of boot camp I give when I teach people how to start a business, except that that's about 24 hours of teaching, and no matter how fast I talk, I don't talk that fast. And so the only thing I can do today is to introduce you to a notion we have called small giants, and that is that the one thing that is most important about entrepreneurship is persuading everybody that they can do it themselves. And so I have 3 stories to share with you today. Each of them are entrepreneurs from different parts of the world. None of them are public speakers, as you're about to see. And my goal is to embarrass them by putting them in front of you. Actually, that's not my goal, but might be the consequence. I have stories to tell. The first story starts with this very notion. We talk about the developed nations and the developing nations. We talk about rich nations and poor nations. Let me tell you, underneath those covers, not all is equal. Wealth is very unevenly distributed. In England, in the UK, for example, we have areas of great deprivation next to areas of great wealth. This is true in every developed nation. One of the most depressed areas is an area called Doncaster in the north. Proud area, used to have heavy industry, now it has nothing. And if you would, we can roll the video and I'll introduce my first entrepreneur.
I've been into fashion since forever. When me and my sister were little, we used to tie bed quilts around ourselves. We were dressing gown belts to have a big dress, and we've always been doing with stuff. I'm Kelly, and I make bridal wear. I've always made things for myself. Every time I went out, if I went on a night out, I'd make myself something new. And then friends and family started asking me to make things for them because it were different, because they wanted to stand out from the crowd. I live in Doncaster. I've lived here all my life. My friends and family are all here with me. It's quite tough to get a job in Doncaster. There's not a lot out there. I did my GCSEs. They didn't have room for me in textiles at my high school. I left school, got a job at a supermarket on checkout. And then I had James and Daniel, they're my 2 boys. Then I started working at petrol station, which is just a bit up road from where I live. It was my stepdad really that got me into learning again. He got me into college, doing a good degree under University of Hull. I got a 2-1, which is quite a high score. I'm really pleased about that. I've always wanted to have a bridal shop, and I wanted to do it where I could make clothes. I started off by getting in touch with Success of Doncaster. They helped me with my business plan. They got me a grant, and then they put me in touch with A4E. They're an organisation that helped me get funding to fund my business, and advice. I got really pally with my mentor, Lisa. She was great. You can ring her anytime and she's there for you. There is a lot of help out there, so that has surprised me. Typical day at work for me is unlocking the door, kettle on straight away, coffee. Put Amelia down, she'll start playing with her toys, and then I start sewing. It can be quite scary when I've got loads of orders in and it's just me sewing. It's just me making the dresses. I have to call on my friends and family to come and sew a few beads on, stick a few gems on, but there is just me sewing, so it's down to me to make the dresses and get them done on time. I wasn't expecting the time that you have to put in. It is long hours and quite stressful at times, especially when you've got deadlines to meet.
Ready, 1, 2, 3.
It's quite difficult having a young family and having a business as well. I do find time just to put it all to one side and just have fun with them, really, and that's what being a young family's about, isn't it? Having fun. My customers are always somebody who wants something different. They don't want the run-of-the-mill dress. They want something different. They want to stand out. They want to put their own personality into the dress. When they come out and you see the face, you just know that they're happy with it. And then the mum starts crying and the sister starts crying, and it's just a really good feeling just to come in and create something that's really nice, and somebody goes away really happy because they love what I've just gave them. Then that's great. I do find advertising is quite difficult for me because I've got on a low budget. I can't just take out ads everywhere, so I have to be quite ruthless in what I'm advertising in. My latest idea was to go to Car Boot, just not to sell anything really, just to take a few sample dresses and hand leaflets out. I got quite a good feedback off that. I don't have a website, and I really could do with a website. If I were looking for something, that's the first thing that I'd do. Look on the internet, and without a website, I'm losing out on them customers. I'd like to expand. I'd like shops in different areas, and I'd like to open a one-stop shop for weddings. Everything to do with a wedding under one roof. All my friends have got just normal 9-to-5 jobs. They can go at home at the end of the day and just kick off the shoes and sit down and relax. I sometimes have to take my work home with me, but I get it done. I've never let anybody down. I love my job. I love to make people happy and feel special in what they wear. Just that reaction that you get from your customer is just amazing. Obviously, yeah, I do want to make money. I want to go further. I want to secure a future for my children. That's the main thing. And just to show them that you can get to where you want to be if you just be passionate about something. If you just get your head down and just do it, then you can do it. Like, look at me. I'm different to all my friends. They've got normal jobs, and there's me. I've got my own business and a young family, so I'm very proud of myself.
Right. So what I want to do is first tell you, Kelly, I'm very happy that you actually got all the way out on the stage. Thank you very much. Yeah, Kelly was unsure of whether it was worth coming all the way to Zurich to sit in front of you, and hopefully you appreciate that she is here. Thank God. Yeah, Kelly, a few questions in the time we have. Doncaster is an area that doesn't have the best of prospects for most people. What do most people think about what you're doing? The truth.
The truth. My friends and family are happy for me, but I
I've got a majority that think I'm nuts for starting my own business.
And what do you tell them when they say you're nuts?
I'm not nuts. I love what I do.
And what do you aspire to have happen? Right now, your shop's been open for 6 months?
Mm-hmm.
6 months. And where do you hope to see it go?
Hopefully, I'll be a well-known bespoke fashion designer, bridal wear. I'd love to expand my business and have a one-stop shop for weddings. My next goal is to get men's suits in, to get them hired out and stuff like that to build more revenue.
And when you look back over the last few years as you've tried to put this business together, 2 questions. One, what was the moment that you realized you could? And second, if you hadn't had the help you have, what was the biggest challenge that you actually faced?
The moment I thought that I could do it was when I received my degree. That gave me the extra push to move forward and open my shop. But I couldn't have done that without the funding that I was given. I got some grants, but I also had to apply for a small business loan as well.
So you couldn't have done it without initial capital?
No.
And how much capital are we talking about in the 5th richest, largest economy in the world that helped you start your business?
I borrowed £2,800.
Right. So for those of you who don't translate quickly, that's a little under $5,000. So you're telling me basically for the presence or absence of $5,000 in one of the richest nations of the world, you would not have been able to start your own business.
No.
Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
We'll hold that thought. And where next? What is the biggest thing that if somebody could just drop in from the sky and say, help me here, where would that help appear? Pretend for the moment you're there.
I need to get the word out. That's the main thing. I need to spread the word, let people know where I am.
And what would help you do that the most quickly?
A website.
So how about I build you a website?
That'd be fantastic.
You got a deal. So now we know what I'm going to do. Now I have a question for you that I'll pose to them. Because I believe in participatory activity. What can we, all of One Young World do? Bearing in mind there's a group here, and there's God only knows how many people watching you on the web. Please don't be frightened by what I just said.
Just go away and talk about me. Spread the word.
Right. So your mission at One Young World is to tell everybody in the world, if they happen to live in the north of England, and they happen to be getting married, that there is a fantastic bespoke wedding designer out there. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Kelly Curry.
Thank you.
You did great.
Thank you.
The next entrepreneur represents a very different set of circumstances. At School for Startups, one of the things that we're interested in is proving an assertion we have that it has no particular basis, and that is that no matter where we go in the world, there is an opportunity for economic freedom, that people, given the opportunity, will rise to the occasion. It's a belief. I don't have a basis for that belief except my own self-belief in people. But we continue to try to test that belief, and in that spirit, one of the questions that I was curious about is in emerging economies, not developing countries, but emerging economies, in those countries that are relatively recent to the free market, how do conditions differ? And so in the beginning of last year, we began a process whereby we ended up with a program in Romania, which has many of the interesting characteristics. Its history over the last 50 years is very interesting in that it was not a free market economy. It went through a great deal. But the people now, who are in their 20s, were born after the downfall and death of Ceausescu, who was the last totalitarian ruler of Romania. And therefore, they are the first of a new generation. Our next entrepreneur, as you're about to see, does not view themselves, and I think rightly so, as an entrepreneur in Romania. They view themselves as an entrepreneur of an age group, your age group. And I would assert that one of the other reasons those titans of communication were terribly important is his view of the world and the opportunity that it presents. If you'll roll the video, please.
There's not so much of an entrepreneurship culture here in Romania. People tend to graduate as perfect employees, but not as entrepreneurs. The Communist Party was at power here for 50 years. Every entrepreneurial initiative was wiped out. Everyone was working somehow for the government. I'm sure that in the western part of Europe, there's somehow of a balance between entrepreneurship and people that are employees. It's nothing wrong with being an employee, it's what makes you happy. The trouble is that most people here that are employees feel miserable with their lives. And that's something that I tend to see more and more often. I speak with friends. They have well-paid jobs. They earn way more money than I do right now, so their life is great. But I read some sadness in their eyes. I'm Sebastian. I'm 24 years old, turning 25. The business started in 2008 when I was in my last year of university. I've decided with my co-founders Gaby and Andrei to build a software company. We were first of all competing with major companies in Romania that already had large accounts and large clients. So somehow we knew that this was not to say bound to fail, but it was never about to take off and really be that business that we dreamed of. What we've done in 2010 in the beginning is totally change the business model and focus solely on this project, this platform that we've been building ever since. With our platform, you can create any app, including, let's say, the New York Times app, in a couple of hours instead of a couple of months. Mobile apps are expensive and difficult to build, and what we're trying to do is change this and make them available for everyone. Convenient, easy, fun, and very fast. The best feedback I've got was someone saying that he doesn't believe that this is possible. I said, yes, we hit the jackpot. We have something that people don't even think they can do, and they think it's so cool, right? So that was amazing. What our product does is really solve a problem in a very, very hot market. We would love to try Silicon Valley, to move there and to try to grow our business there. I think things would happen very fast there for us. Somehow it's good to have a part of the team here in Romania and also develop the entrepreneurial community and be a role model. But from a market perspective, we would be very happy to move to a more mature market, be that Silicon Valley or UK or any country in Western Europe that has a great appetite for the mobile industry. I feel like I have some things I want to prove to myself, to the people around me and to the world. I want to prove people I can be successful on my own, I can be independent and build something from the ground up. Actually, my parents were entrepreneurs for a little while. Back when the communist regime ended in Romania, they went to Germany for a year and a half, saved some money, and when they came back home, they started their own business, a bakery. And that actually went well for a while, for a year or so, but then something sad happened. My father died in a car accident, and my mother was forced to end the business, to sell it and put an end. So maybe this is an important part of my entrepreneurial drive. I do have a girlfriend. We've been together for 8 years now. She's my high school sweetheart. She's a lawyer. We're both working very hard. We've recently moved in together. I really need her because for me as an entrepreneur, my life is so crazy from day to day. It's very important for me to have a relationship, a stable relationship. It's tough. I mean, for every business, it's extremely tough the first couple of years to get it going. In terms of hours, I tend to work 12 to 14 hours per day. I sometimes think of competition. I sometimes think that we're a small team in Romania and not a large corporation in the US. These thoughts keep me awake. I've met Doug Richard a couple of weeks back. We actually had a small discussion about our product, and it was like a breath of fresh air. One Young World is a great opportunity for us to tell our story to amazing people, and hopefully we'll get some amazing feedback, some criticism. We're happy to share that and to gain some feedback and to let people know what's our product. We're very grateful to have this opportunity, and I think it will play a major role in the development of our business. We want to have a global business. That means conquering 4 or 5 markets, and the US must be among those. What we need now is a handful of great people who can help us take this product globally. We need a little financing to further develop the product and build a great team. The rest we've got covered. We've got energy, we've got vision, we're a great team, so we want to make this happen.
Sebastian, One Young World, One Young World.
Nice
Sebastian.
to meet you all.
One of the things you say in the video, Sebastian, that I find very interesting is that you want to move to Silicon Valley. So
Yeah.
I guess I got a question for you. Do you not feel that you're just as good a group in Romania?
Well, you know, Doug, we all read the same publications, us from Romania as well as the guys in Silicon Valley, and we always think that we're missing on something because we're not there. We cannot know for sure. But from Romania, we would really like to try it there, and we really think that that could change.
Well, let's dig into it, because I'm very curious. But part of it is your statement that you just jump right into. We all read the same stuff.
Yeah.
So when you think of yourself as a young technology entrepreneur,
Right.
do you think of yourself as a group, part of a group of people in Romania, or as part of a group of people in mobile software anywhere in the
No,
world?
I think we're a part of a group, a global group. So we're not thinking in terms of local, but in terms of global. So we're a family, let's say, spread throughout the continent.
A family that you're competing against.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Families compete.
There you go. So in that spirit, why I want to understand better this notion that you have to be in the valley to succeed. Because the fact of the matter is, as you actually say in the video, there's a tension there, isn't it? Because you're essentially saying, I'm leaving Romania, and of course what leaves with Romania with you, potentially, is the economic benefit to Romania. And if the whole world is a brain drain to those places that are already successful, the rest of us have a challenge, those left behind while you go off and enjoy Silicon Valley. And so what I'm trying to understand is, what is it about the Valley, or your perception of it? So let's go through it. Customers, partners?
I think it's
Money?
a matter of education. Customers are more educated, they understand the value of certain products, software products. I think, for example, the media, the press, is also educated, and it's encouraging entrepreneurs to have entrepreneurial initiatives, and also, let's say, for example, investors, right? They understand their great ideas, they back up entrepreneurs, and this is something that we only see happening there at the moment. So we don't really see this in our country or in other parts of the globe.
So it seems to me that the challenge for you and I, especially if we're going to do stuff together, is because, correct me if I'm wrong, because this came up in one of a conversation quite a while ago, is where would you rather hire your programmers?
I'd rather hire my programmers in Romania. I mean, Romania is a great pool of talent for programmers, for technical people, and I'd definitely love to work with these guys there.
And how many Romanian programmers can you get for the price of one Valley programmer?
I think I can get 4 or 5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other side of a very double-edged knife.
That's what helps us to keep up with competition and also gain up on competition, the value of the programmers in Romania compared to...
So when I met you, I was rather skeptical, as I recall.
Yes, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I believe I was one of the people who said, I don't believe you. So
Right.
my recollection of that event was, because I had some familiarity with the New York Times app, was the fact that you showed me something that I didn't believe could be done. And that was an application that took 8 to 12 weeks to develop and about $60,000 to $80,000 in the US. You were able to develop in how long?
2 or 3 hours.
Right.
Or less.
Yeah. And what is the next thing? You know, if there's, like, I had the same question I asked Kelly. If there's one, what is your biggest challenge, and what can the world do for you? So let's start with the biggest challenge right now, today, as you sit here as a business.
The biggest challenge is also to get the word out there, to get the people know we exist and to try our product. So if I were to ask, for example, this crowd something, I would love to have you all go on the website, appsend.com, try the product, and maybe offer us some feedback, maybe build your app, a successful app, put your ideas into action. That would be great. I mean, this is the thing we really need now. We need people that can try out our product and talk to us and help us succeed.
And in that spirit, just to put a fine point on that, I showed this app to my 20-year-old daughter, and she said, oh, I've had an idea for an app. I just didn't know what to do about it. And so she's now going ahead and using Appsend to build her app over the next few weeks. And I promise you, though she'd hate me to say it, she's the least technical person who ever walked, well, perhaps after me, who ever walked the face of the planet. So what do we have them do for you? I haven't decided what I can do for you yet, but what do we have them do for you? Who here has ever had an idea for mobile app? Show of hands. I don't have any technology. Right, look at all the potential partners we've just created.
That's what I've said. Please go online, go to appsend.com and try out our service. Let us know what you think. Maybe build your app. We've had a success story in Romania. A guy signed up, built an app, which was listed the first in top 3 apps in the App Store Romania. So that was a success for him. It can also be a success for you and a success for us.
So you're 2.5 years into your business now, more or less?
Yeah.
Right, so what's the hardest thing you had to overcome in the first 2.5 years? I mean, I presume it's been a bit of a learning curve.
It is a learning curve. I mean, we've switched from a service-based model to a product. We've invested everything into this platform to differentiate ourselves from other companies that do the same thing. And the hardest thing was indeed to learn that what we started off was something that was not so differentiating, and switch everything to this and put all our money, all our dreams, all our ideas into this venture.
There's a very famous expression in the US technology community called the Plan B syndrome.
Right.
Plan B syndrome is the notion that wherever you start a business, whatever your plan is, the business you end up with is completely different.
That's correct.
And you always end up on Plan B. I wish I'd known this years ago. And the challenge with Plan B is however much a Royal Dutch Shell can scenario plan. As an entrepreneur, it can be a bit of a challenge. You see, because Royal Dutch Shell has a scenario planning department. You have the hours from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. And so your resource base is somewhat more circumscribed. And thus, as an entrepreneur, what you do is you invest everything you've got into running as fast as you can.
True.
Until one day you wake up and you realize you're running in the wrong direction.
Right.
So what was the critical moment when you realized that the service business wasn't going to work, and all of a sudden you had to reinvent yourself on a dime as a product business?
Well, it haunted us for a couple of months, right? And at the end of the year, we drew the line to the income statement. We've seen what we've done that year, and it said we have to stop. Because we know we can do better, and this is not better. This is us in mediocrity, staying like this. So we said, okay, we'll throw this away, start something new. At the beginning of 2010, we've invested everything we've gained into this project, into this platform.
So from January 2010 to mid-2011, you've essentially created a platform that revolutionizes mobile app development.
Exactly.
Thank God you didn't waste time. And what can I do for you?
Doug, I think you're already doing very much for us, and I'd love to have you as a person who always can mentor us or can give us some advices, can open us perspectives to clients from the UK or from abroad.
And what do I always tell you? Ask for concrete things.
Yeah.
You know? So fine. Here's the question. Here's the question. I'll ask you again. I'll even answer it for you and save you so much grief. So you don't move, right? Okay. So Sebastian, what can I do for you? Don't move. Well, Doug, how about becoming a customer?
Well, you already are my customer.
All right, Sebastian, you got a deal.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Doug.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sebastian. In fairness to Sebastian, I set him up. So one of the things we at School for Startups, School for Startups is a social enterprise, and I'm a huge fan of this thing. Therefore, we're a business that generates surplus, and then we take that surplus and we roll it back in to our own activities. And one of the things we would like to do is we would like to create a series of mobile apps that help people, while they're starting businesses, help themselves. And so we're going to hire Sebastian because he can roll his own faster than I've ever seen anyone do before. What I'd really like to see happen is if you actually think you can create a mobile app, if you've got a great idea and no idea how to do it, do me a favor. 1, try. 2, let us know. We're easy to find. We're at School for Startups, at S4S on Twitter, at Small Giants TV, so at SGTV. Easy to find us. Let us know, and what I'll do for you in your app is I will call it out to the whole world so that if the only issue is that nobody knows about it, I'll help you conquer that issue. Deal? Right. We have one more entrepreneur I'd like to show you. Actually, 2, technically. One of the things that was brought up earlier today, and I'm not sure where it was brought up, I think it was in the two young ladies who were talking about OFID in the beginning, they just touched lightly on it. They talked about a south-to-south initiatives. There is a notion in the world that the northern hemisphere helps the southern hemisphere, that the northern hemisphere provides aid to the southern hemisphere, that it provides development and benefits to it. You know, sometimes the question I think really should be is, how about less aid and more access? One of the biggest challenges that people have is not that they need the aid, but they need the access to the same privileged markets that those who are providing the aid guarantee with very tall trade walls. And sometimes then the question arises, if you're not going to break down the trade barriers that are in the self-interest of many Western nations, maybe you should stop trying and let the South help itself. And therefore, I'm always a huge proponent of anybody who tries to show that they can be not just an entrepreneur, but a South-to-South entrepreneur. And we have a case of that. The second thing I think they show is that though we very frequently think that entrepreneurs are young, in truth, they're young at heart. And so I found us some old codgers who are entrepreneurs as well. All right, they didn't really enjoy the fact that I've just called them that, but what can I say? They're also unusual on a lot of levels. And so if you would, we can roll the intro film and we can try to figure out what they're about.
I've always had a really independent streak. I've always loved to go out and to travel into different places and put myself into situations and complicate my life more than necessary. I don't really know why. I don't know where that comes from. I'm from the U.S. originally. I grew up in Texas. I guess from a very early age I was already thinking, well, I'm going to go out from here to someplace else and do something else. I'm Mike Barrow, and I'm making wine in Argentina. Costa Flores is a project started in 2003, making organic grapes to make a wonderful wine, a single vineyard wine to export to places as far afield as India. It is daunting to go to a new country and to do something that you're really unfamiliar with, agriculture. I think it helps to be a bit naive and maybe a bit of hubris to begin with. There's lots of work to be done all year round. I spend most of the spring and the summer months when I can in the vineyard. A good part of the year though, I'm traveling to India, to East Africa, to other places, really working a lot on the sales element of this. You have to be here, but you also have to be out in front of people. The wine I make is called Mike Tango Bravo, and it's a Malbec Petit Verdot blend, all from organic grapes. And it's designed to go well with spicier foods and very flavorful foods, and that's one of the reasons that we're focusing this wine or creating this wine for an Indian market. India is an exploding market right now. I mean, everybody knows this. The growth in India, upward mobility, and whatnot. And when people reach a certain class or status level, status is internationally associated with three things in my mind. Wine drinking, playing golf, and driving a nice car. Playing golf and driving a nice car are both very expensive compared to drinking wine. So it's something that people pick up as an aspirational thing, but it's also, of course, an object of beauty in my sense. That I'm in love with Indian food and Indian culture, so it's wonderful to see how we can blend something from far away as Argentina with that. The wine business is really three different businesses in one. It's about growing grapes, it's about making wine, and it's about selling the wine, right? And these are all really three different kinds of businesses that are wrapped into one. A lot of wines are from large beverage companies, and they associate it with their spirits and their beers and things like that. And they tend to have a lot of tie-ups and packages that it's really hard to compete with that. You know, I don't have a Johnny Walker, I don't have these other labels or the marketing budget. So there's that issue about competition, playing against the big boys as a boutique winery, and really just getting brand awareness, but getting, most importantly, shops and restaurants and hotels to pick up the wine. Luck Hunters is my project to create a TV and internet-based program that basically follows myself and Natalio Feingold taking wine and music from Argentina to India specifically. Natalio is a renowned musician from Argentina and is an old friend of mine.
Mike and I, we have the same problem, that we have a product. Yeah, we do it with a lot of passion and it's great and it's good. But we don't have the money, basically, to put it up like a normal way.
We're using traditional media with a television program and tying this into something that is in, exploding right now, which is social media.
We are bringing very old-fashioned products, and they've been around forever, through the new channels of communication.
It is a convoluted or complex solution to the problem of brand placement. But as an entrepreneur with that type of competition that you're facing and the difficulties, you really have to create something completely different, innovative, to differentiate yourself and to create a story. People love a story behind the product,
No, I don't think it's a crazy idea. I think it's going to be great. I don't know.
It's an extraordinary experience to wake up every morning and walk out in the vineyard. It's really beautiful. And just to see this slow organic process that's going on, to be working around something that's year on year evolving towards a long-term goal. I am proud of it. It's also a very humbling experience. There's so much, you think at the beginning it's a much simpler business, a much simpler project, and it turns out to be much more complex, growing grapes, making wine, and selling the wine. But that's the beauty of it. It's the journey that's really beautiful for me. So I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't go back in time, and if I knew what I now know today and do it any differently, I think that the journey itself was the real reward.
Right, before we jump in, I feel compelled to explain. Mike, stand up. Right, explain what you're wearing, please.
Well, this is a wine dip suit. I took a bathtub high up into the Andes and filled it with 200 liters of wine and sat in the bathtub. And this is actually the second time I've done this. It worked for a few weeks.
You have another one like this at home?
Yeah, it turns brown after a while, but it has a really nice smell if you want to.
There you go.
But we managed to hobble out on stage.
I just didn't want them to think you were that poor. Right. I hesitate to start with you two, because as much as, well, let's start with the simple stuff. Mike, from your point of view, what do you do for a living?
Well, I make wine, very nice Malbec Petit Verdot in Mendoza from organic grapes, and now taking this wine to India mostly.
Natalia, what do you do for a living?
I'm a musician, composer. I write music.
And you've got I believe it's a rock opera.
I just wrote the rock opera from the Andes, from South America, from an old legend from the Andes. That's what I've done.
And, I mean, wine and music, all you need is love and you'd be done.
Well, they're good things to go together. It's
yeah,
a very
they're
positive
fine,
tone.
but then we end up with this other thing that's out there.
Yes.
You've created a TV show.
So we're doing a TV show called The Luck Hunters. And basically this is a reality show that's going to follow us around the world on TV, on YouTube, and of course with a big push with social media, working with entrepreneurs in different countries to promote us during our program around the world. And it's basically just me selling wine and Natalio selling his rock opera from the Andes, El Futre, as we travel around the world, but showing how we can tie these together,
And why? Why create TV show? There's a purpose in your madness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the challenge, just like with any entrepreneur, is getting the word out.
Same thing Sebastian said, same thing Kelly said.
Right, but the idea of doing the TV program is to say, okay, here is the product, the wine or the music, and here are the followers, the customers, meaning on the TV program and social media all in one go. So if you're a shop owner in India and you're thinking, well, I've already got 30 wines on my shelf, or you're a theater producer in Mumbai or in London or someplace else, and you say, well, it's a very nice piece of theater you've done, but it's not The Wizard of Oz. It doesn't have the brand recognition. You say, yes, but here are all the followers that we've got, people that are interested because we're doing this really fun TV show around it.
So in defense of your proposition, I was trying to figure out if I had any other analogs out there anywhere. And I did run into something. It may be that you're at the forefront of a revolution. And I'll tell you why. Because if you're an author and you try to publish a new fiction novel now, in 2011, in any of the major developed markets, in an area where, it's a brutal area publishing a novel right now. There's a lot of them out there, and the number of people reading has not increased with the pace of novels created. The publisher, first thing they ask you is, do you already have an audience? And it's a catch-22, isn't it? Because if you haven't published, you don't have an audience. If you have published, you do, and therefore the published get published and the unpublished remain unpublished. And so what people have started to do, once again, because of technology, is they've moved something that used to be called vanity publishing and is now called self-publishing, where they create audiences using social media. They create a group of followers so that they can hand to the publisher and say, look, I'm already loved. And I would assert that you actually are trying to close the trio. You got the wine, you got the music, you're looking for the love.
Well, can I give an example of how this would play out? So, because I've done a lot of trips around places like India and East Africa showing wine and talking to them. But imagine this situation. I'm walking into a liquor store in Lucknow or in Bangalore or wherever. And I'm showing the wine and I'm explaining, this is from Argentina, it says organic grapes and the regular story. And the shop owners will look at you and say, well, okay, that's interesting. And then I take out an iPad and I say, all right, I'm going to take 3 or 4 pictures of you and your shop. And this is 3G, and I'm going to immediately publish a page with Google Maps saying, my wine is sold in your shop if you buy it. And the camera that's filming us, because it's a TV show, is going to be edited down to a program on YouTube at the end of the day or the next day. And at the end of the week on network will be a broadcast television. So basically, and we've got
hundreds. You're driving a lot of business to his shop.
Exactly. We've got hundreds of thousands of followers, and this is why, and plus all of the exposure you would get on these other outlets.
Is your wine any good, Mike?
It's very good, yes.
I'd hoped you said that.
And it's well suited for spicier foods and things like that.
So I'll ask you guys the same question I asked the other 2 entrepreneurs. We're sitting here in front of all of One Young World. I'll ask you each separately. What can they do to help you? Natalio?
Me first. Well, you can go to iTunes and listen to some samples of the music.
What do they type into iTunes to find you?
Elfutre.
Spell that for those of us who are challenged.
E-L-F-U-T-R-E.
Elfutre.
Elfutre. And my name, Natalio Feingold, and you can listen, and if you like it, you can get the word out. And also to the Luck Hunters, that is the program we're doing. And basically, we're just trying to get like a really nice vibe and music and wine to the whole world.
So music, wine, and a vibe. That's what we're asking for. Mike, what can they do for you?
Well, I mean, like I said, since we're doing a program on YouTube and it has such a huge component with getting those followers. So when I'm standing in front of that shop owner, it's really about following on Twitter, following on Facebook. That would make a huge difference for us.
And drink your wine.
And drink of wine, of course.
Yep.
It's a hard job, guys.
Yes.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause.
Wait. I have a question. You didn't ask us the second question.
Yes. What's the second question?
What you can do for us.
Fine. And what can I do for you, Mike? Thank you for reminding me.
Yes. Well, as the great mentor of entrepreneurs that you are, we'd love to have you come on one of the episodes of the Luck Hunters.
Okay, you realize I didn't know this was coming, and you've just put me on the spot.
Basically, you have to sing. No.
There goes your TV show. Fine, done, deal.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Natalio and Mike. Right. We are running out of time, so let me close reasonably quickly. There are only a few things I want you to take away. School for Startups is a social enterprise. Our goal is to teach people how to be revolutionaries, how to start a business of any form, of any size, and of any stripe. And to some degree we succeed, some degree we don't. Depends on the person standing in front of me. I believe passionately that the entire world hinges on the innovations that entrepreneurs deliver, on the fact that they continue to be deeply unreasonable people in a reasonable world. If you're at your age not going to be unreasonable, who is? If you at your age is not going to aspire to change the world, who is? If you're interested in changing the world, I would assert that one of the great ways to do it is to do it through entrepreneurship. You can be a small giant. I think anybody can be a small giant. And I wanted to thank Dave and Kate, and in particular, the people who let us put this on today, because flying around the world and doing video turns out not to be free. And so we've been supported by somebody called A4E, who helped people on welfare get into work in the UK and in other countries. Yes, I'm a big fan of theirs as well. And so thank you, A4E, thank you, Dave and Kate, and thanks to all of you, small giants.